Alors, bonsoir tout le monde.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of March 23rd. Let's start by saying that the City of Dieppe recognizes that the land on which it operates is part of the unceded traditional ancestral lands of the Mi'kmaq. Also, dear colleagues, may we have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change. Thank you. And with that, we will start the meeting. Welcome, everyone. Let's start by saying that.
Item numéro 3.
Item number 3, Mayor's announcements. I have no special announcement to make unless there's something from the CAO. No? Okay. Then I will call this meeting to order.
Appel à l'ordre, c'est fait. Constatation du quorum.
Confirmation of quorum. Yes, Your Worship, we do have quorum. There are 2 members of or councillors who are away for work-related reasons. Conflict of interest. Does anyone have any conflicts to declare? I hope it's not a lack of interest, but all right. Councillor Godbout has a conflict to declare? No? Okay, not this evening. I think I was seeing that in the last week, the meetings from the last meeting. All right, adoption of the agenda. Can I have a mover? Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Lanting. On the question. Seeing no questions, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries as presented. Moving on. Presentations, inquiries, and petitions. Do we have someone from the RCMP? No, we're at 8.1 tonight, or this time. We have a presentation from the Department of the Environment, Mr. Alexandre Truchon-Sabar. It's an update on the bylaw respecting vegetative growth. So let's hear his update. Good evening. Thank you, councillors, Your Worship. If we go back to 2024, we had voted on a bylaw, and we had committed to coming back with an update to council. So that's what I'm here to do tonight. I just want to give a few highlights of what has transpired over the last 2 years. So it's our bylaw officers who enforce this bylaw. And so there were certain issues that were identified, measuring length, recurring complaints that were causing problems with neighbors, and there were some challenges as well. So council wanted to look at, to review the regulatory framework. So we came up with a new version in 2024. And we worked with the bylaw enforcement team. So again, in 2024, we came to you with bylaw C35 respecting vegetation growth, which specified the maximum height of a lawn or other types of plants. There was a condition not to encroach on public rights of way or signage. So we didn't want visibility to be reduced in certain areas. And the bylaw provides for directives that may be issued where warranted. If there are potential risks, fire risks, for example, in the municipality, or environmental risks, harmful plants, and so forth. So, private property, we saw a reduction in the number of interventions. We continue to receive complaints, but our intervention is basically about explaining the new bylaw to residents, and so we don't have to do on-site interventions anymore. We used to get hundreds of calls in the summer. In 2022, I'll just give you some statistics. 55, we had to do 55 interventions. We had to go and take measurements. We had to discussions with and follow-ups with residents, and sometimes at the same address. In 30 of those cases, all we had to do was issue a reminder, and the lawn was cut. Warnings were issued, and there were a small number of citations that were given as well. But all of that effort, all we have, they took up a lot of resources responding to these complaints for the bylaw enforcement team. And it was difficult to enforce length. Where do we measure? What do we measure? Do we measure weeds and so forth? So the new bylaw is much easier to enforce. It's much simpler. And with respect to tolerance of neighbors, well, that's the situation is well managed. So in the case here, you see an extreme example in 2025. And we're not talking about total negligence here, but we can see flowers, lots of other different types of plants growing on the lawn. And eventually this person cut their own lawn without us having to intervene. So that's with respect to private property. Denis, I don't know if you have anything that you want to add. I'm just asking my colleagues here if they have something to say before I move on to public property. So we did some experimenting on public property. We did a pilot project with the community services or recreational services to make better use of some of our spaces. So we did 3 experiments on 3 different sites. So we left part of the lot cut, another part we let the grass grow, and then the third part we seeded a flower meadow. And the goal there was to promote to the well-being of pollinators. So we had a partnership with the entomology department of the University of Moncton as well. And what we looked at was ground beetles and springtails. These are very useful beings. With respect to ground beetles, I mean, we see them often. If you turn a rock over, you'll see them. And they control other pests, and we studied them because they were easy to trap in traps. And the springtails, these are microorganisms that we were able to test by taking soil samples. So one of the interesting results that we observed was this. So in mowed areas, we saw there wasn't a lot of change in the number of ground beetles. In seeded areas, we saw a sharp decrease in ground beetles at the end of the season, because so the population of ground beetles was high in the spring and then low in the fall. And so the beetles liked it when we did not cut the grass, and it was beneficial for the environment as well. So that's a very quick overview of the application of the bylaws. And I know that councillors have probably heard from residents, but in terms of bylaw enforcement, it was beneficial as a project. And this was shared with other regions as well, and we've got feedback from experts even in Toronto. They were telling us that we were kind of at the front lines in terms of this bylaw. So I can take your questions now if you have any. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Janet, thank you, Your Worship. Great work. Thank you very much. In terms of public property, so we had you did a first experiment, a first project of leaving lawn mowed, non-mowed. So what are you going to do in the coming years? What are we going to be doing with our public land? What are you planning to do to promote biodiversity and just to follow up on these experiments that you made? Well, we meet quite often with Public Works and Recreation, and we're exploring different mixes of seeds. Some seeds are better adapted to boulevards. We don't need to cut them. And with the roundabout, for example, at Rouelle-la-France, that's a very dry area, so we'll probably have to plant a different type of seed in that area. But we'll continue to experiment, and it's certainly a gain for Public Works. We're removing land that has to be mowed, and it's also very beautiful as well. So in the Dover soccer field, when everything's in flower, it's quite beautiful. All right. Well, I'm just excited to see what comes after this. I'm very excited to see that we're dedicating our resources to promoting the environment. So congratulations. Anyone else? All right. Well, I think it's gone over well. All right, let's continue then with a presentation from Micheline Paulin. She is going to be talking to us about the results or proposals stemming from a report on the remuneration of council members. So good evening and welcome. All right, for those of you who are back in the, I'm happy to come back to speak on behalf of the ad hoc committee. So we looked at the remuneration of council members. It's a sensitive topic. You know, whenever we talk about increasing the remuneration, it's always a bit. But we have a good committee made up of citizens that got together to determine whether we needed to review the remuneration, and if so, what would that remuneration look like? I would like to commend the commitment of the committee members, and I'm the only one here from that committee tonight, but I would like to thank Jean-Guy Viennot. I know a lot of you know him. Some of you play golf with him, I think. Isabelle McKee-Alain. She's a former prof and manager at the Université de Moncton. And Robert Frenette, that a lot of people know. So they were supported with Marc Melançon, Stéphane Thériault, and Sonia Vautour, who always makes sure that things are going well. She makes sure that we have all our documents and all our photocopies made. So I thank the members of the committee. I'd like to go back over the objectives that led to this committee being struck almost 7.5 years ago. And it continued to guide this group. We're essentially the same members. So it helped guide us in the review work that we did. So our objective was to support modern governance of our municipality and to promote an appropriate composition of members of the board, and to take into account the effort involved, the complexity of the issue studied, and so forth. And I really have to congratulate our small committee. So in looking back at the work, when I look at council today, I see that there's a balance in terms of gender. There is a balance in ages, and no, I'm not going to try to guess how old you are, but I think there's a good balance. And there are also people who are still active on the labor market. So I think the question of remuneration, it's easy to kind of sweep that under the carpet, but it's an important issue that we need to look at. I hope that this new balance that we see on council is due to a better aligned remuneration with the time required and the complexity of the work involved. So we were asked by the clerk of the city to meet, and the first thing that we did was, do we actually even need to do a review? We did that 7.5 years ago, and we took that very seriously. So do we need to conduct a review? Our discussions led us to determine that yes, a review was needed. So first of all, the city's population growth over the past 7 years was important. The growth of the city's tax base, especially with the addition of new territory during the municipal governance reform. So that was another factor. And the tool that we were using 7.5 years ago from the Association of Francophone Municipalities, we hadn't really factored in a computer price index into that tool.
Une indexation à l'indice.
But the association actually included the CPI into their tool after we did it. In 2018, the municipality was growing, but it had a tight budget, and we had recommended at that time that they increase the remuneration of elected officials over a 5-year period. So what we agreed to was that instead of doing the same thing that we did in 2018, we thought we're just going to review that with the tool that we adopted and that has since been adopted by a big part of the municipalities throughout the province, both Francophone and Anglophone. We just wanted to review all of the points that the Association of Francophone Municipalities had put. So what were those 5 points? There's population, and I've already mentioned that. The type of service offered, the number of institutions like colleges, universities, and hospitals, and so forth, the tax base per resident, and the area. So when we did the compilation of all of that, we came to the same point. So yes, we've grown, but in terms of remuneration for that period, we stayed at the same rating.
Puis aussi une chose aussi qui est importante.
Another thing that's important, and I find it interesting, sometimes we don't realize this in our municipality, is that the Dieppe municipality is the only municipality between 25,000 and 55,000 people that has that size of population. All of the other municipalities are under 25,000. The biggest municipality, the next biggest municipality is 16,000 people. So I think we're about 30 to 35,000 people. So we're unique in that sense. And I think it's important that our elected officials be remunerated and that we recognize that difference in numbers. Another element that we considered seriously was that the Association of Francophone Municipalities, after we used their tools in 2018, they integrated the idea of using the consumer price index into their calculations. So the AFNB, the Association of Francophone Municipalities of New Brunswick, integrated that tool. And I think what the committee is recommending to council is to recognize that in 2018, we should have recognized that the remuneration should have been adjusted based on the consumer price index. And that's what we're going to be recommending to you tonight. Now, another thing that we considered was the need to make sure that we stay between the bigger municipalities in the province and that we be higher than the smaller municipalities. So the 4 members of the committee, with the support of staff, recommended unanimously that starting with the new council, not you, I mean, some of you might come back. Well, we don't know what's going to happen in the elections, but starting in June with the new council, these new rates should be applied. And we also recommend that on an annual basis at the beginning of each year, automatically, the remuneration should be adjusted based on CPI. Now we saw a 6.8 increase during the pandemic, and then there was a lower figure that we saw at one point, but we want to keep a certain balance between the capacity to pay So we recommend that for the mayor or the deputy mayor, it should be increased to $94,000 and $94,223, and that on the first day of June of each year thereafter, it be adjusted. And then for the deputy mayor, it should be 45%. Sorry. The first figure that I mentioned was for the mayor. For the deputy mayor, it should be 45% of that amount. So $42,000, $42,400. And then for councillors, 40%. All right. Are there any questions from councillors?
Merci, Monsieur le
Councillor
Maire.
Janet. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Micheline, for the presentation. My first question has to do with the incorporation of the consumer price index. How many municipalities are doing this in an automatic way? is this kind of revisited after a certain number of years? But otherwise, well, the tool that we use from the Association, Francophone Association of Municipalities, they've incorporated an automatic indexation based on the consumer price index. Now, I can't tell you the number of municipalities that do this, but after the work that I did in Dieppe, I received a huge number of calls from cities and from villages and towns who wanted to know how to use this, and many of them adopted it. Because what it does is it creates a structure for what can be a very sensitive topic for elected officials. Now, I don't know Marc or maybe Philippe, but there's at least a dozen that do this automatically. And the AFMNB is indexed every year. Every year it's adjusted. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. The AFMNB circulates a table with the adjusted amounts every January. So this is something that municipalities that have adopted this do. All right, my second question then, just remind us of what the expectations are. What are the advantages of increasing the remuneration of elected officials? Just, what are the expectations? Do you want a diplomatic answer or a non-diplomatic answer? Listen, it's important, in my view, as a resident. I'm just going to answer for myself here. It's important for the council to be representative of the population. When we don't pay people for the time that they're going to be devoting to this work, essentially you'll get people who are retired or who are financially at ease, who don't have family. No, I shouldn't say that. Or either they don't have family or their family's grown up and they've moved away, like me. My kids are growing up now. But what we really need is a council that represents people with families. A mother with 2 or 3 children. They need parks, they need sports activities. So I think it's important that that council be representative of the people living in that community. And with the old formulas, where people were literally either not paid at all or paid very little, we had people, that dedicated, they were very generous with their time, but they weren't necessarily representative of the entire community. So was that diplomatic enough? Okay, yes, you were. All right, thank you, Micheline. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you for the report. When you talked about the criteria that you used to do your evaluation, you mentioned municipal reform. And I think that's the biggest criteria. It's the most important one, in my view. This reform created a lot of complexity, with regard to the work that we do around the table. It's a reform that brings with it a lot of complexity. And, as long as we don't have a tax reform as well, it'll remain complicated. So thank you for the work. Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the issues. It will be the division of responsibilities between the various organizations that were added.
I don't see any lights on. So once again, thank you very much for that great job and all of the effort that you and your group of citizens put into it. You put a lot of time in looking at all of this, and I'm going to complain because there's no back time included there, but I'm joking. But once again, it was an excellent job you did, and we weren't expecting anything less. Well, thank you, and I'd like to thank all of my colleagues on the ad hoc committee as well. Thank you. Now we're at questions from the public. No questions by members of the public? Okay, let's move on then. There's nobody from the RCMP here this evening.
Non, aucun
Did
courrier.
we receive any phone calls or email questions? No? Okay. Which brings us to the adoption of the minutes. Who would like to move the adoption? Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Jeannin on the question. If there are none, all those in favor? All those in favor? All those who agree? Please, those who agree. We'll start with those who are in agree. All those will signify by saying aye or contrary nay. The minutes have been adopted as presented.
Brideau à 10.1. On est à
We're
10.1.
at 10.1, Councillor Brideau. Yes, one item at a time. So it's been moved and carried. Next item, motions, memorandums, and nominations. Yes, and the first item under administration, we have a tabling of the report that was just presented by Ms. Paulin. So you have it this evening, so that we can approve it and we can add it to the bylaw on remuneration of elected officials. So this is the next step this evening, and then we will proceed with the adoption of amendments to the bylaw for salaries of council members. So you have a resolution here this evening to adopt this report, and then we can move on to the next steps. Who would like to move it? Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. That council received the report of the Ad hoc Citizens Committee for the remuneration of members of council dated March 12th, 2026, and included in the file. And I so move it. Thank you. I move it. I move it. Yes, it's moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. Which brings us to 11.2, community development. 11.2.1, community grants, various organizations. Yes, the Community Development Department then offers us this list of the community grants in 2026. So there are two accounts. For the first one would be $410,400 for grants to organizations, and a second amount of $114,500 from the general operating budget for event hosting. And to ensure full transparency, because you have the full list here of all of the grants being suggested that you are going to consider for adoption this evening. Here you see the list on the screen. The public can look at all of and see all of the groups who have applied for or who offer a service to the municipality or who are planning an event in 2026 in our community, which makes them eligible to receive a grant for hosting the event. So that you see the amounts here, and the staff recommends that you adopt this motion for an amount of $524,900, and then the money will be distributed to these groups as you see on the list on the screen this evening. This is for your consideration, Your Worship. Thank you. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize the 2026 grants to the various organizations listed in the table attached to the memorandum dated March 11, 2026, and further authorize that the sum of said grants in the amount of $524,900 be defrayed from the following accounts. $410,400 from account number 1-2-20-28-2310 General Operating Budget Grants to Organizations, and $114,500 from account number 1-2-20-28-2320 General Operating Budget Event Hosting. That Council hereby authorize the administration to proceed with the disbursements in accordance with the terms and conditions set out in the 2020-26 grant programs, and I so move it. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Lantaigne on the question. If there's a question, Councillor Godbout. Thank you. Thank you for the information on previous years as well, and the amount that had been applied for as well as the amount actually granted. In several of these requests, you see a big difference between what's asked for and what is granted. In some cases, for example, Maison des Jeunes, programming, Extensio Gymnastic Club, for example, what were we not able to accommodate? For example, I'd like to start with the positive. Well, congratulations. Thank you for all of these. I'm glad that we're making these contributions to the community, but it would be nice to see perhaps if we could reserve amounts for later, which I think that's a good idea. But what are the needs that we weren't able to respond to, that we weren't able to give grants to? Well, as we said in the new policy, we're going to get more information from our community groups to try and connect the requests for grants to the city's orientations and objectives. So, of course, if I look at the group Extenso, for example, that, as you mentioned, this group is asking for a little more, but for Extenso, we give a part of their grant for the private gym. Now, the price of the private gym has gone up over the years, and we've maintained our grant at $14,000. Now, of course, under the new policy, we might have to reassess this, but with the new information that we're going to get, perhaps it will allow us to reassess. But we don't have this information, no, at this point. But the youth house as well, for a number of years now, they've been getting grants, and we were able to raise it a little bit, but we're considering the status quo for right now because we don't have the policy in place that we will have. Those are the only two, I think. Or there might have been the Boys and Girls Club that was asking for $5,000 more. We did work with them last year, and we were able to get gym rentals along with the pickleball club. So they got $5,000 that way. So sometimes there are other ways to get money or get other sources of revenue. So we like working with the groups that way, and that's what we did with the Girls and Boys Club. Thank you. You answered my second question as in that, do we use other means to support them? Thank you for that. Thank you, Councillor Janot. Thank you, Your Worship. And just for clarification, normally in the table, we would see the Capitol Theatre, the Arts and Culture Center. Where are they now? Well, they don't come out of the same account. Those are budgets that are approved. The Capitol has its budget approved from its own account. There's the $75,000, and the Arts and Culture Center as well is a budget amount that is approved separately. They're approved during the budget deliberations in November. Thank you. Thank you. I don't see any other lights on. So to read the resolution or to vote on the resolution, who would like to move the resolution? It's been moved and seconded already by Councillors Thibodeau and Lantaigne. Okay, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye, contrary nay. It's carried as presented. Thank you. And now we're on the dissolution of the Age-Friendly Advisory Committee. So you're going to lose your job soon. Well, it sounds drastic, but let me explain why we've come to this decision. There is a positive element to this. The committee with Mr. Arsenault made a presentation to council last week on the 16th. He presented the principles and the highlights of the age-friendly committee group. Now, the presentation was also made to the MADA committee, so the age-friendly committee. So it wasn't a surprise for any of the stakeholders, including you, council members. One thing that came out of this is that this is for the seniors by seniors. So whereas in the past it was by the city for the seniors. So in order to respect the spirit of the mandate of this committee, the council is putting a call out to the community to fill the seats, which doesn't allow us to bring together all of the key partners of this sector. So we have other partners in the community that just citizens who are invited to participate. They're not all necessarily, they're not the key stakeholders. For example, the Golden Age clubs, the different committees that involve residences in the community. So the city will continue to support this initiative. We're proposing, though, a new structure that will allow people to create their own committee, to develop partnerships with the different stakeholders in this sector to make sure that the seniors in the community are well integrated, that their needs be met, that they're active and stakeholders of their activities and initiatives that they'd like to see in their community. The city will support the development of a community committee for the seniors by allowing a few councillors to be appointed to the committee, but without a formal structure. And so we want to give more flexibility to the people who are involved in the committee, and that administration be mandated to help them throughout the transition and to inform the concerned stakeholders. We see this as very positive. We have another committee that is working hard on programming. It's not involved with the age-friendly committee directly, but it will work in partnership. And we think this approach will allow better involvement and will better respond to the reality of our seniors and to meet their needs. So that's the reason behind we are winding down this committee, but it's in order to better meet the needs of our seniors. Thank you. Thank you. And yes, we do need to vote on this. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Gaudette. We need a mover and a seconder. Yes, moved by Councillor Gaudette, seconded by Councillor Lantaigne. On the question? Question? All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Oh, Councillor Gaudette may have a question? No, I just want to read the resolution. Okay. Yes, we have to read it. Yes, before we move in second, before we vote on it. Yes. Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, this is one job less that we'll have here. That council dissolve the Age-Friendly Municipality Committee as a council committee, and that administration be directed to inform the relevant stakeholders. And I so move. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Gaudette. and seconded by Councillor Lantaigne on the question. Any questions? No, no. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. Environmental management. Yes, so this now the Environment Department is proud to present its first urban forest management plan. It includes technical analyses, a portrait of the urban forest today, the summaries of the external and internal consultations, and recommendations for actions to improve and preserve our green cover in the municipality. The plan also offers objectives on the canopy per sector of the city for a 10-year period. With the presentations and the consultations that they organized, staff and administration recommend that you receive this plan, and it will allow the development of an action plan and which will lead to wonderful initiatives for the environment. This is for your consideration this evening. Thank you. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Gaudette, you're still willing? Thank you. We need a mover. A mover and a seconder. Who would like to second it? So moved and seconded by Councillor Gaudette and Councillors Lantaigne. Councillor Gaudette? To read? Thank you, Your Worship. That Council received the plan entitled Urban Forest Management Plan, and I so move it. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Gaudette and seconded by Councillor Lantaigne on the question. If there are none, all those in favor of the resolution will signify. Oh, no, there is a question there. Thank you. First of all, I apologize to staff here. We had a large package to read, and this 200-page document just didn't make it when I was doing all of my reading. So I'd like to come back to this at some point and spend more time on it. But in the work that you are going to be doing, how is this work going to help you in your decision making? At what point are we going to have to update it? How useful is it going to be? Just if you could give me a brief summarize so that I can read it more efficiently. Thank you for the question. Yes, it's very relevant, very to the point. Well, in fact, it gives us clear objectives, where to address our focus, where to put our energy, so that we can filter out the noise. When we get all sorts of requests, all sorts of good ideas, we have to decide which ones to work on first. So our priorities are to continue to work with our partnerships with internal services, with urban planning, with engineering. We have to strengthen our partnership with external resources, with First Nations, for example, perhaps develop more presence of our of indigenous species in our public spaces, and keep metrics in order to be able to compare. In 5 years, have we done a good job, or should we review our actions? Well, as my second question, at one point we had funded different research with university students, and this is from the results of that, no, in part? Well, yes. This partnership with the expertise, that served as a springboard in order to maintain our leadership position in Atlantic Canada. Thank you. And my last question, we had seen that our municipality and another one, I think it might have been Fredericton at the time, had adopted a plan, or how does our plan compare? I mean, I don't want a comparison, but how do we position ourselves? Did we do things differently? Is our approach different? Did we get different information, or are we very aligned to what they did in terms of ideas? Well, the context is very similar. We use the same firm worked on the Fredericton plan as well, Stantec. We received excellent comments from staff in Fredericton on their work, so it worked out quite well. Now, what was noticed as difference is that we have excellent partnership with internal departments with a lot of proactivity in terms of planning for the future of the canopy. But there's certain things are different. Fredericton has different tools. They have more money as well, but they have more public communication tools. We wanted to really focus on the data, on the recommendations more, and less on the packaging of the whole thing, but that'll come later. I mean, these are things we can continue to work on the communications through other projects with other firms in order to develop our educational material further. And thank you. I have another question. When I read this very quickly, we noticed that there are a lot of data, a lot of monitoring will be done on the canopy and the green cover. What do we expect as a frequency to come back to council? Do you know how often or when you're going to come back to council with an update? Are you going to come back to council, or is this just an internal report? Well, the canopy objectives are set on a 10-year horizon. Seems like a long time, but for a tree, that's not very long. The trees that we're planting today won't even have reached their potential in 10 years. So I think that's meanwhile, we can review our data on the green cover, but a lot of things will have changed. But also these trees some of them will have grown. And there will be certain developments as well since in the meantime, so we'll follow both. And there's a question for you, Marc. In terms of reports to council, how often are we going to have the opportunity to look at these figures and become aware of this data? Well, if council wants an annual report, well, we do have an annual report of the municipality that is really a quick portrait of all of the municipal services. There is also a strategic plan that talks and focuses on the green cover. So now we can come back, we can present a report periodically or as council feels necessary, but it's the action plan that's going to be developed that is going to be measurable. So this action plan will allow us to measure. Well, it'd be interesting to know how often they're going to come back and see us. I don't know what it might be, but it would be good that they do so, just so that we don't look at it once every 10 years. We want to look at it more often. It'll be more often than once every 10 years. Well, I know you're going to see it more often, but we'd like to see it more often as well. Well, there are certain elements of it that'll appear in the annual report every year. And if you allow me, it's the 10 years is for the canopy cover, with it for the whole municipality. I mean, we use satellite data, we use lidar data, so it's easy to present a report every year on what we've planted, what we've cut, what we've acquired as public lands, what are we going to do with these land for public purposes, for example. Yeah, it's in municipality has an obligation to report on acquisitions and investments. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as it presented.
Prochain point, Monsieur le Maire, c'est
The
demande de
next
financement.
item, your work is a funding application to the Green Municipal Fund from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the FCM. As you know, when there are programs, we always want to try and invest, and when we're eligible, we would like to apply. So this program will allow us to apply for up to $175,000 from the ICM, and we're eligible to the 80% of the cost of a project. So we're asking to authorize a budget transfer in the amount of $45,000 to apply. And then when we get the response to for the application, we'll tell you if it's a positive reply, and if it's less than what we've been asking for, our contribution will reflect the 80-20%. So this is a request for $45,000 maximum for initiatives under this program for the Green Municipal Fund. So the recommendation is to apply, and it's for your consideration. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Thibodeau. No, sorry. Councillor Brideau. Councillor Brideau. Thank you. That Council authorize the submission of a funding application to the Green Municipal Fund, Growing Canada's Community Canopies, Urban Forestry Plans and Studies Initiative, offered by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. That Council authorize a budget transfer in the amount of $45,000 from account number 7-4-20-12-8910, General Operating Reserved Fund, to account number 1-2-50-72-2720, General Operating Budget, Forestry, for expenses related to the said application. And I so move it, Your Worship. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. On the question? If there are none, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. Now, engineering, 11.4.1. It's a tender award for the Amiro Street reconstruction. Yes, for the last 2 years, we've been talking about the Dieppe Boulevard extension, and this was included in that project. This great project was still progressing. Now, after analysis by staff and by the engineering department, we've prepared phase 1. Well, we've separated into 2 here. There was an RFP from Dover Road to the JF Bourgeois Street. So it's we received 6 bids under this tender, calls for tenders, and the bid that is being recommended is Fulem Construction Limité at the cost of $5,030,302.50 plus HST, and authorize an additional amount of $350,000 to EXP Services, Inc. And this will be carried out in 2026 and is for your approval this evening. Thank you. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Jana.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Thank you, Your Worship. That Council award the tender for the project entitled Amiro Street Reconstruction Phase 1A to the lowest bidder, Fulem Construction Limité, at the cost of $5,030,302.50 plus HST. Authorize an additional amount of $350,000 plus HST to EXP Services, Inc. for engineering services relating to said project, and further authorize these expenditures be defrayed from account number 3-3-35-58-7697, General Capital Budget, Amiro Street Reconstruction, Phase 1A, and from account number 4-3-90-59-7697, Water and Sewer Capital Budget, Amiro Street Reconstruction Phase 1A. And I so move it. It's been moved by Councillor Janin, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. On the question. Councillor Gaudette, you have a question? Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question of information. I know that everything is expensive, especially building a road, but why did we stop there, that we didn't go right up to the limit? Why did we stop at number 333? If Mr. Cormier, you can add information. If Mr. André, you can add information if I don't have it. But the project was too broad in scope. And then following consultations with our experts, the project could not have been completed before the end of the 2026 construction year. So based on the wisdom of certain peoples, we had to demonstrate that we had to complete the running service completely before the end of the construction period. And the last 2 phases will be carried out in 2027. Okay, so the next phase will be the following year. Yeah, there are two more phases in 2027 to complete the whole project and the water tower. So it's going to be 1 lane. How? Because there's a lot of traffic. Oh, for traffic during the construction? Yeah. Mr. Cormier? Yes, good evening. Thank you for the question. Well, it's going to be down to 1 lane, yes, as much as possible. But during the night time, they might be working on the waterworks and on the water main, so the road might be closed completely, but people will receive notice in advance. And we recognize that this will bother people, but we've had meetings with the public, and there were detours will be suggested, Little Dover Road, the highway, that's a little further, of course. But in order to be able to complete this project, we ask for patience, but there will be alternatives, and they'll have to choose whether they're going towards Dieppe or towards Memramcook. Well, yeah, because I lived in the Dover area and it really wasn't very wide. So I'm not going to be receiving the calls, but there will be some, I'm sure. Yeah, we understand. Yeah, well, the question is, do you want to, do you want we need to arm ourselves with patience. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented.
Next item, 11.4.2. 11.4.2. So here, this is regarding the design criteria manual that guides subdivision development projects, our procedures, standards, and guidelines. So this is an important document to help us develop our infrastructure. Now, we understand that you had a lot of reading to do. We included a 300, 400-page document as part of your package. So just to summarize a little bit what the changes were, and I'll give you 5 points, and I know that it's a long document to read, but I can assure you that staff and external consultants worked on these documents as well, so that they reflect current standards and to ensure that we have high quality assets. So this resolution deals with that. So the last review dates back to 2012 and 2015. So it was time to update the document. For water and storm systems, we're following trends in the industries and the most recent reference documents. So we're using 2026. For new streets, we'll do installations of multi-purpose trails in asphalt instead of sidewalks. So that better meets the needs of today. People are biking more, and it was a challenge to do that on what we had in the past. We're also adding a mention of the tree bylaw, which did not exist during the last update. The existing documents are in English, so the update presented is in English, but we can assure you that the intention is to have that translated into French and to make it available on the city website. So we wanted to complete the review first, and then we're going to start the translation. This is a complex document, so we'll have to work with translations and our staff to complete the work. So this resolution deals with all of this, and it will allow us to share this information in our bidding as well. So that's for your consideration this evening. All right. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Thibodeau, please. Brideau, I'm sorry. I get you two mixed up. They've been around me for too long there. Inaudible comment. That council approve the proposed revisions to the City of Dieppe Design Criteria Manual for Municipal Services, dated March 2026, as well as the proposed revisions to the City of Dieppe Subdivision Development Procedures, Standards, and Guidelines, dated March 2026. I so move. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. Since I already used his name, so on the question. No questions. Oh, there is a question. Go ahead. So I wanted to spend a bit more time reading this. I do have a few questions. I want to understand the role that this document has in decision making and what it influences what you present to council. So that's something I want to understand. And so one of the questions that I had was, in the last mandate, we talked about, and I imagine, and I remember there were discussions with regard to the width of our trails, our cycling paths. Was that part of the discussions, or? I think it wasn't in a bylaw when we talked about it. It was in this document. But so were those discussions held, and is that reflected anywhere in this document? Mr. Cormier. Well, congratulations have gotten through that document. It's especially over the weekend. So with regard to multi-purpose trails, now typically we would build them 3 meters wide, and that was based on a national standard. So it could go from 2.5 to the ideal of 4 meters. But for residential areas, we thought that 3 meters worked well. But on arterial streets like Dieppe Boulevard, the 3 meter amount doesn't necessarily apply to that. We could go to 4 meters. So on Dieppe Boulevard, we're building 2 multi-purpose trails. Each of them is 4 meters width. So, and if we think we need to get larger, then, well, we had talked about extending into 6 meters too, but okay. So this document would allow you that flexibility. Yes. This is something that we had discussed in council. We wanted to see more of this in the future, but I would have liked to have seen this more as a target in this document. I think that's something we should look at in the future. We'd also talked about, between subdivisions, there would be buffers and so forth. But here, there is designs for subdivisions, but this idea of having buffer zones or transitory zones more clear between subdivisions, is that in this document? Well, there's a distinction between this document and the municipal development plan and the development or the zoning bylaw. We're not going to we won't define those details in this document. Yeah, I just wanted to know, where does that information, where is it found? Well, Your Worship, maybe Mr. Girard has an answer to complement what Mr. Cormier has shared with us.
Monsieur Girard.
Go ahead, Mr. Girard. So basically, these standards or the concepts that you're talking about would be reflected in the municipal development plan and the zoning bylaw. So the zoning bylaw specifically, that's where we define the depth of lots. And with the review of the municipal development plan that we intend to undertake this year in 2026, and that will project out to 2027 and 2028, we'll be able to add more detail to these concepts. And then later, we're going to be looking at the deposit of the secondary plan, or the tabling of the secondary plan. Well, I would have liked to have seen these ideas start being identified, but I understand that it will be in other documents as well. That's okay. I have had a few other questions as well. The analysis that we have in this document, how are we aligned with the other municipalities? Is there a lot of alignment, or do we do things? Are we doing things differently than other than neighboring municipalities? The documents of Moncton were verified, and we were trying to follow what they did to it, to ensure uniformity with developers. But based on our experience, there's certain things that we want. So, for example, there are things that we do that Moncton doesn't do. But the subdivision manual, we're following what Moncton does, and we think that it'll facilitate things as well. Another question that we had was Article 1.7.3 in the subdivision procedures. We were talking about merchant value of land we're saying that the land for public purposes was determined by a firm. Did we clarify in the procedures that we wanted a merchant value? Are we just going back to what we were doing before rezoning? This is something I've been bringing back for five years, bringing up for 5 years.
All right, je vais recommencer.
All right, so it's really the Community Planning Act that determines the approach. We don't have any discretion in that regard. The Community Planning Act specifies that the evaluation is when the subdivision request is tabled. We can't use speculative measures, or so it's when the subdivision plan is tabled, and so that's in the act, and we have no maneuverability, if you will. We have no flexibility. All right, my last question. So has there been an exercise to simplify things, to make things clear for people who interact with the city? Has that exercise been done? Has that reflection been undertaken to reduce, to support better understanding? I'll take the first part, and then I'll give you the second part. So 11.8.2 is part of this initiative. So 11.8.2, and on today's agenda, we're going to be adopting the bylaw related to the subdivision of land. So we want to refer to the manual and to the technical documents that we wanted to reduce red tape. If we deviate from the established standard, then there's a whole waiver procedure, and that can add time as well for developers. So, and as was mentioned by my colleague, by applying the manual norms, it gives a certain amount of discretion, but when it's a bylaw, it could be quite rigid. So that's the point of 11.8.2. Right, that helps. The procedures that we have in place work quite well, but there's so much information in there. I think developers are used to this. We don't, we don't have a big region. We just have a few firms. We didn't want to change too many things. We wanted to remain consistent, but the information that we're asking for is, in some places we, are including more information, but that's because we had identified gaps there. So when we're adding, we added some criteria as well.
Pour au vote, on va passer au vote.
So are we going to vote on it now? All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented.
Oui. Alors, prochain point, Monsieur le maire.
Next item, Your Worship. Let's see. We're in urban mobility. It's the agreement renewal we have an agreement with Maurice Richard, and there's a section in the agreement that allows us to renew for an additional year. And this is what the staff recommendation is, to proceed with the renewal of the agreement for a year, and it'll allow us time to better analyze the changes and the additions that we're going to be adding to the public transportation system, and if we'll be able to better assess the service and see if any changes are warranted. So we'd like to maintain the service, and we'd like to renew for another 12-month period. And this is for your consideration this evening. Who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Jeannin. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize the renewal of the on-demand transit services agreement with Maurice Richard until March 31, 2027. And I so move it. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Jeannin, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question.
Godet.
Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. You already answered one of my questions, Mark. I was just asking if we had the option of renewing for another year. I have questions. I mean, it's $286,000 for an average of 116 hours per week. So how do you monitor it, or is he on call for these hours, or these hours that the vehicle is actually in movement? I'd like to ask Mr. Aubé to answer because he has the details. Thank you for the question, Councillor. Well, essentially, yeah, there's a fixed schedule for on-demand transit services. The provider has to offer the services every week, and it's as a complement to public transit. So, it's the first mile, last mile principle. We start early in the morning so that people can get to work, and we end up late at night. So the schedule is fixed every week, but the schedule will be modifying. It's not the same number of hours all year round. At the beginning, we had 138 hours, and we're going to reduce it to 108 hours in order to adapt operations with the changes to the network that are underway. So I'm just trying to offer, this is a service that's being offered. It doesn't necessarily mean that the vehicle is actually in movement. The service, yeah, it runs from morning to evening, from 6:30 in the morning to 10:30 at night. But if it's part of it is on demand, so if they're asked for, then the trips are offered. But so it depends on the demand. Yes, absolutely. I don't have figures, but we could give them to you if we do. But we know exactly how many trips are made. Yeah, I think we have software, right? That's all managed by software. So everything is recorded, all of the services being offered. Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions? Yeah, just to add to what my colleague said, it's not just one person. Maurice is the owner, but there's more than one vehicle on the road as well. Thank you. Is that clear? Any further questions on this? If not, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. Now, 11.6 operations, 11.6.1 tender award. Asphalt repairs. Yes, this is a subject that is very popular this time of year. It's time to award a contract to repair the asphalt on our public roads. Following a call for tenders, we received 5 bids, which represents the level of competition here. And we recommend that the tender be awarded to the lowest bidder, Dexter Construction Company Limited, at the cost of $679,675 plus HST. And we authorize that this be awarded in order to start planning for the repair of our asphalt. Who would like to read the resolution? Hang on a second. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council award the tender for the project entitled 2026 Asphalt Repairs to the lowest bidder, Dexter Construction Company Limited, at the cost of $679,675 plus HST, and authorize this expenditure be defrayed from the general operating budget and the water and sewer operating budget accounts listed in the memorandum relating to said project dated March 11th, 2026, and I so move. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Lantaigne, seconded by Councillor Godet. On the question. There are no questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. And it's carried as presented. Next item, 11.7, heritage and partnerships. Yes, sorry about that. Yes, you have before you an indemnity agreement, Council. You'll remember that the Lakeburn Church was put on the market. It was purchased. It was to develop a project that has taken place, but the church did have history for the Lakeburn community and the city of Dieppe. So following that, there were discussions with the developer to see how we could recognize the site that does hold a place in the history of the community. So you have an agreement with Mika Properties Incorporated. You have this agreement in front of you. That agreed that they will put a monument up to expose the church bell, which was maintained, and there will be a plaque that will allow to read about the history of the church and all of the elements that contributed to its place in the history of our municipality. So congratulations to the owner and to the community of Lakeburn, as well as to staff. And I think they found a win-win solution following the demolition of the church, but in order to conserve its memory and its history. So the agreement is add in an appendix in your documents, and we'd ask you to approve and sign this agreement with Mecca Properties. Who would like to read it? Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council authorize the municipal signing officers to sign an indemnity agreement in favor of Mecca Properties, Inc., related to its consent to allow the construction of the church bell monument from the former Lakeburn Church on its property. And I so move it, Your Worship. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Lantaigne on the question. There are none. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It's carried as presented. We are now at 11.8.1. Planning and development. Planning and development, yes. So here a lot of work has been done over the last few months with planning and development and the start of construction of Dieppe Boulevard. We've been working towards a master plan for the Dieppe South section of the city. You have a resolution before you to receive this report, this plan. And to summarize, you've already received presentations here in council, and the public has received them. There have been many consultations over the last few months. The master plan establishes a global overall view to guide the development of the sector in order to frame the built environment to support the urban growth strategy objectives, to ensure harmonious transitions, and to promote a quality urban design, as well as adding helping the natural assets to structure and add value to the corridors, the ecology of the area, and reappropriate the Petitcodiac River. So there's a healthy planning and of municipal infrastructure in the plan, and you have all of this information in the document before you that will guide the development of this Dieppe South area. And we'd ask you to receive this report and to authorize it. Thank you. Who would like to read the resolution 11.8.1? Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council received the report entitled Dieppe South Master Plan and authorized the City of Dieppe staff to incorporate its recommendations and policies into the municipal regulations. And I so move it, Your Worship. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. Councillor Godbout. Thank you. I have two brief questions. The first is on page 26 of the document, which is page 627 of our package. It's policy 5-10. This policy indicates that council would like to give more flexibility in the zoning bylaw concerning the subdivision, et cetera, et cetera. When we say we want to include this in our procedures, when we talk about council wants to allow flexibility to a bylaw, how do you do that? And what is the process for that? What do you mean by that?
Oui, donc ici, la politique vraiment là, pour...
Yes, the policy, in order to relax the elements of the bylaw, unless I'm mistaken, because I'm not familiar with all of the policy numbers by heart, but I have it here. I just want to see what page, what we're on. This is for sustainable development. What we're proposing in this new area is to limit the creation of new streets and to propose to limit the creation of local streets. And when we talk about relaxing of giving more flexibility to the bylaw, it means that the approval of the streets would be council's prerogative. So even though there's a there's a policy of not recommending local streets, but the council can still override that and relax those elements.
Merci. Je voulais juste comprendre qu'on avait pas.
Thank you. I just wanted to understand that we weren't giving ourselves extra discretionary powers. So that's all I wanted to know. My second question is on page 29, policy 512. Through the zoning bylaw, the municipal council allows a large number of uses. So the question that I wanted to ask is, what tool do you use to establish the ratios that we want to create between institutional, residential, and commercial? What tools do you use? Where are they defined? Are you talking about like the ratio? Well, you know, when we were saying like Boulevard Dieppe has institutional institutions, shops, and residential buildings. So where are the ratios defined? Well, with respect to the Dieppe Boulevard, commercial and residential buildings will be allowed all the way along. In some places the commercial buildings will be mandatory. So some intersections, some key intersections. So, and we can see that, and they're marked on the conceptual plan. They're marked by lines. Where what we want to create is something is the environment that's already downtown. So like on Yvonne, for example, we require the presence of commercial units at least on the main floor. That doesn't mean we can't have residential units above that, but okay, I'll come back to that a little later, but I'm okay with that for now. Thank you.
Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions?
Any further questions? Seeing no further questions, who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Lanting, please. Oh, we already had a mover and a seconder. All right, then, so we'll go for a vote. We'll go to the vote then. All those in favor, opposed? The resolution carries as presented. And so we've done the tabling of Dieppe South Master Plan. So the next point is the PAC recommendation for Bylaw Z3. So just to give you a bit of context, you'll remember that we received funds from the CMHC. An agreement was signed last December, and that required us to make some changes to Bylaw Z3. At the same time, we made changes to technical documents that we discussed earlier. We incorporated certain complementary information in Bylaw Z3 to facilitate discussions and collaboration. So in the document, you have a summary of the proposed changes that was explained by Mr. Cormier from engineering. So there are various engineering details, legal sections. Some of the parts of that section were revised. So the PAC recommended with those, or recommend, or agreed with those changes, and you have the details of in the minutes. So we're looking for your recommendation now. Who would like to read it? Councillor Jeannet, please. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council receive the report. The Council accept the Planning Advisory Committee's recommendation made on March 18th, 2026, which calls for the adoption of Bylaw Z3 2026 relating to the subdivision of land in the city of Dieppe. I so move. All right, moved by Councillor Jeannet, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. On the question. Are there any questions? No questions? Okay. All right, those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution passes as presented. Next item, municipal bylaws, 12.1, bylaw A8, 2026. So this is the last reading by title only on the bylaw in question. Who would like to read that bylaw? Councillor Jeannet, please. Bylaw A-8, 2026, a bylaw of the Municipality of Dieppe respecting the pension plan for the employees of the City of Dieppe. I move in third reading by title. Seconded by Councillor Rideau. On the question. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution passes as presented. 12.2. Now this is the bylaw on the subdivision of land. There was a PAC recommendation in favor of the changes. So here we have, we're asking council to pass this bylaw by first and second reading. Z3. All right, who would like to read that? Councillor Thibodeau, please. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw Z-3 2026, a bylaw relating to the subdivision of land in the city of Dieppe. I move in first reading by title only. Anyone who would like to second? Councillor Jeannet, on the question, are there any questions? I see none. So, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The bylaw passes in first reading. Next reading. Bylaw Z3 2026, a bylaw relating to the subdivision of land in the city of Dieppe. I so move in second reading by title only. All right, Councillor, seconded by Councillor Jeannet again. Thank you. On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution carries as presented. Moving on now to item 13. We're at item 13, notice of motions. We have 5 notices of motions involving bylaws and 1 involving a policy. We would just ask for a councillor to read each notice of motion. Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw Z0-1 2026. I give notice of motion that bylaw 0-1 2026 respecting outdoor watering will be introduced at a future meeting of council for first and second reading. If we could get someone to read the second notice of motion. Oh, my microphone is on. Okay. I give notice of motion that bylaw 78-5, 14-2026, amending the bylaw of the City of Dieppe respecting sewer and water distribution systems will be introduced at a future meeting of council for first and second reading. Done. C1 now. Who would like to read that?
On fait chacun un.
Okay, we'll each take one, I guess. So I give notice of motion that bylaw C1 2026 relating to traffic and parking will be introduced at a future meeting of council for first and second reading. Thank you. All right. A18 now, bylaw A18. We could maybe go around the room. Councillor Godet and then Councillor Godbout. Councillor Godet. All right, I give notice of motion that bylaw A-18 2026 respecting the remuneration of the mayor and the councillors will be introduced at a future meeting of council for first and second reading. Thank you. And Councillor Godbout, maybe for the last one.
Et voilà.
Je donne l'avis de motion que la
I give notice of motion that policy L23 2026 grants to community organizations will be introduced at a future meeting of council for adoption. So, Your Worship, that completes tonight's items for tonight's meeting.
So let's start at the other end of the table for council announcements. Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. I just have one concern, a question. I don't know who to ask it to, but between Pélagie Street and the new Dieppe Boulevard, I had mentioned it about 2 months ago that there had been some trees cut in that area. Anyhow, I went for a walk in that area last weekend, and all sorts of streets are already cut. I'd say between Pélagie and Dieppe Boulevard, it's about 600 meters. And in that square, there's probably at least 25% of the trees have been cut. I mean, I was just wondering if they had permits to cut that wood, or if you allow me. It's probably related to the exploration work for the new school. All of the activities of the province, it cannot be regulated by us. If it's a DTI that did geotechnical analyses or cut corridors for their geotechnical analyses, it could be pretty big cuts at sometimes. We can't do anything about that. It's the province. But we will make sure that there is that there was more that was cut last week. There was a machine cutting, and they did some real massive cutting, and there's some waterways in there. And yeah, we'll go check the territory. And you said it might be because of the new school. Well, it might be exploration work for the new school. Well, there's a lot of roads there being cut. Well, it's not our works. I mean, it's not our engineering service, but I know the last time we had checked a request, there were stakes planted. There were stakes. I mean, it was from DTI, Transport and Infrastructure, but we'll validate it. Okay, just send me an email to see what's happening. Yeah, thanks. Councillor Jana.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. J'ai rien à
Thank you, Your
rajouter ce
Worship.
soir.
I have nothing this evening. Have a great end of evening, everyone. Thank you. Councillor Brideau. I have nothing this evening. Have a great evening, everyone. And happy spring. Oh, it's too late. I'd already turned off your mic there. But it's probably going to rain the rest of the evening. Councillor Thibodeau. I just wanted to let you know about the discussions we had at the Forum of Mayors last week. I replaced the mayor who wasn't able to be present. The different subjects were discussed at the beginning of the day. For example, we talked about ambulances. It's become a problem in certain areas of the province where there is a lack of human resources. The ambulances are there, but they're parked because they lack the human resources. So they want to put pressure on the government to settle that problem. We also talked about harassment. And in a number of municipalities, they say that not very many people want to run for elections because they get harassed regularly. We also talked about the code of ethics, and I think that the government is going to be preparing a workshop or a course in order to help elected officials to be better equipped to react to that. We also talked about remuneration. We discussed it today already several times. I think most were in agreement with us. We talked about, we had the visit of the minister. The minister came to talk to us about property tax. That there would be increases every year. So as was said in the budget, there was an increase of $47 million for municipalities. Everybody seems to be happy about that, except that it's not enough to cover all of the services we have to offer. And the Minister of Housing came to talk to us about Build Canada homes. There was nothing new. We'd already seen it in the media. And Thursday morning, we had a meeting with the leader of the Green Party, the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party, and then Benoit came to talk to us about the review of the Official Languages Act. And he said that we could submit a brief before April 8th, which is the deadline, and he was encouraging everybody to do so because the more people do so, more attention will be paid to it. And yeah, that's about it. We had discussions as well with the department, the Minister of Tourism, Heritage and Culture, but I couldn't stay because I really wasn't feeling well. I wasn't able to stay. So that's all for me. Thank you. Councillor Godbout. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you for mentioning the elections and the lack of respect towards elected officials. And I'd like to thank people in this community for the respect they show towards us, which isn't necessarily what people experience in other municipalities. There's always exceptions, of course, but generally speaking, I hope that there are people who would like to run for elections. I don't want to discourage them. We have a great community here, a community that appreciates the work done by council. I'd like to thank staff who organized a great recognition ceremony for Courtney Sarrault last Friday. I was talking to her mother, and she mentioned that, I think, Denis, you were there, that she couldn't believe how easily it seemed to all come together out of a sudden. And my comment was that it's because it was so organic, it was so authentic what we felt for her, towards her, that everything fell into place almost automatically. I think so. People were there. Everybody felt it. Everybody wanted to show the pride that we showed, that we had for her, and her accomplishments. And I think it's it's nice to see when it's nice that everybody has access to these sports, but it's nice when the elite can take advantage of it. And I'd like to encourage residents to show the poster at the arena, and it's really well done. She appreciated the photo, and I'd also like to wish everybody a happy Easter, because we're not going to see you before that. So have a great Easter and great time in family for those of you who celebrate it. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lantagne. Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to take my minute to congratulate the Matadors from Mathieu Martin, who made history. They won, if you weren't aware, they won their elite league for high schools, and Mathieu Martin is a part of this elite league. They won the provincial championship in Bouctouche last Sunday. They won 6-2 against the Cité des Jeunes from Edmundston. So congratulations to our Matadors. It's the second year in a row, right? Yes, it is. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you. And thank you to everybody for your commitment, for your patience, and have a great rest of the evening. Thank you.